Alright, hey guys, this is Tuesday, March 31st. So we did bar graphs yesterday, today will be circle graphs. So again, a good way to do this is as I work through, when you go to start working problems, you can rewind the video. That way you can go through step by step, have me do it, and then do the problem on it. So listen to it completely, and then once we actually go to your work, you can rewind back to the part that is pertaining to the question you're working on. That way you can kind of hear it again. So that would be my advice for doing this, since I'm not with you right there by your side to help kind of go through it back and forth with you. So, colors of cars, this is going to be a circle graph. Now, circle graph is better than bar graph some of the times, because what it does is it allows you to see parts of a whole. And so a circle graph is going to allow us to see, okay, how many of this do we have compared to the total amount of things? And so that is one good thing about a circle graph. Now, it has some limitations too, but it is useful for some of these types of things, especially when you're dealing with numbers and data and things like that. And so what I need y'all to do, you can flip through the packet some to see some of the problems, so you can look through their examples and that'll show you. For this, I'm going to make up my own problem up on the board, so this isn't going to be in your packet, so you can either be paying attention or maybe copy it down, however you want to do it. But this isn't in the packet, this is made up for me, just so I can help kind of teach it through it a little bit simpler. And so, what I did was I created a circle graph of colors of cars. Okay, these are colors of cars, and what this says is the red cars, there's 20% are red cars, 15 are white cars, 45% are blue cars, and then 20% are black cars. Now, I'm going to say there are a total of 100 cars, and so there are 100 cars total, and so 20% of them are going to be red. And so if you want to know the total, how many actual red cars there are, you take the total number of cars and multiply it by the percent. And you have to change the percent to a decimal. And so to change 20% to a decimal, you move it 2 times to the left, and so 20% becomes 0.20. And so to find the total number of red cars, I'm just going to do 100 times 0.20. Because that's the total, 100 is the total, and this is the percent of red. So percent of red as a decimal times the total. So 100 times 0.20, you work that through, and that'll be 20. So there are 20 red cars. Okay? Now, if I wanted to know the number of white cars, you would take 100 and multiply times 0.15. And that's going to tell you the total number of white cars. And so change the white percent to a decimal, so 0.15, and then multiply times the total number of cars, which would be 100. So 100 times 0.15 is going to be 15. And so that tells you there are 15 white cars. Okay? Now, notice the pattern, since there are 100 cars and percent deals with out of 100. The number of cars, we're going to match this just for simplicity's sake, but it's not going to do that all the time. If I change the number of cars, it's not going to work that way. So it's not 20 just because this is 20%. It's 20 because once we did the multiplication. When I change the number of cars, which we'll do in a second, it'll change what that number is. And so if I want to know the number of blue cars, then you're going to take your 45%, your 100 total, and multiply by 0.45, and that will give you the amount of blue cars. And so that'll end up being 45 blue. So that's basically all you have to do. You take the percent you're dealing with, change it to a decimal, and multiply times the total amount, and that will give you how many of each category. Now, I'll change this slightly just to kind of give us the same example, but a little bit different feel for it. So I'll change this to 500. So there are now 500 total. So the total is 500. I want to know how many of them are red. So I'm going to plug 500 into here. I'm going to do 500 times 0.20. So 500 times 0.20, and that will tell you the total number of red cars. And if you have a calculator, you can do it with a calculator. That'll save you a little bit of time. That's no problem. And so for this, doing it, you would just take 500 multiplied times 0.20, and that will give you 100 cars. And so 100 red cars if we had a total of 500. So a total of 500 cars, 20% of them red, it'd be 500 times 0.20. That would give us 100 red. Now, you can also do, okay, how many of these are not white cars? So if there are 500 total, I want to know how many of these are not white, then you would have to add up the percents for blue, black, and red. So if I added up the percents for blue, black, and red, that'll tell me how many are not white. And so when you do that, that would be 40 plus 45. So that would be 85% are not white. Okay? And so then, if I wanted to know how many cars there actually are out of this 500 that are not white, then you're just going to multiply the 0.85 times the total amount, which was 500. And so you do 500 times 0.85, and that will give you your total number of cars that are not white. So 500 times 0.85, and that would be 425. So there are 425 that are not white. So again, pretty simple as far as what we're doing. It just depends on what they're asking you is what you look at. So if they ask you particularly for red, then you do red. If they ask you for not something, then you add up the others. All right, so that is the first part of the lesson. The second part of the lesson is going to deal with finding out basically the total number of students based on what they give us. And so if they say, for example, we'll still work with these numbers up here on the board. So still working with this graph, colors of cars. Now, if they give us 20% are red, and they say, okay, there's 20% that are red, and this actual number is 40. There are 40 red. So there's 20% of them are red, and there are actually the number of red is 40. Then all we're going to do is you're basically going to set up a ratio. And so you're going to say, but essentially it's going to stay pretty straightforward. So don't like overthink it or get scared of it, because sometimes I know you're going to freak out when the problem changes. But just try to keep it straight and simple. So all you're going to do is you're going to take the 40, which is red, so 40 over red, and then you're going to put that over the total number of cars. So you're going to do 40 divided by what? We don't know the total, that's what we're trying to find. So it's 40 divided by what? We don't know, that's the total. So we know 40 are red, X is what we don't know, the total. But we know what that is. When we do that division, we know that should equal the 20%. So we know that should equal 20%, and then we just have to solve for X. So the next step is essentially you're just going to cross multiply essentially. And so we got to get that X out of the bottom. And so basically you're just going to multiply by X and then multiply by X to the other side. So just follow it through, and I'll show you the shortcut in a second. So multiply by X, that way X divided by X goes away and just leaves you with 40 red. And then over here you got 20% times X. Okay? Then I want to solve for X. I want to get X by itself. And so to do that, I want to divide by 20%. That way 20% by 20% is X. And then it's really, if I divide by 20 here, I got to divide by 20 here. So really, X equals, X equals the 40 divided by 20%. So walking back through it, you just set it up, 40 red over the total, which we don't know, equals the percent. And then the algebra, have to get rid of the x down here, so we have to multiply by x, cancels, multiply by x, then we want to get x by itself, so I have to divide by 20%, divide by 20%. And so my x would equal 40 divided by 0.20, or 40 divided by 20%, change to a decimal. And so that is what we're going to have to do. That's all we're going to have to do. So you're going to do 40 divided by 0.20. So 40 divided by, and that would be 200. So 40 divided by 0.20 is 200. So there's 200 total. So again, that's the long algebraic way. Really, the shortcut way is just, you understand what you're doing. You're just taking 40 and dividing it by 0.20. So you just take the red, what you're looking at, and divide it by the percent. So I just take how many there are. There's 40 red. So I divide that number by the percent. So 40 divided by 20% would give me what we did. And that's the algebra for how it works through. And so if I want to do how many of these cars are blue, so there's 45%, and we're going to say, okay, we'll say, I'll pick a number randomly, I'll say 75. So 45%, and we'll say there are 75 actual blue cars. So going through the process, really all we're going to do is divide the 75 divided by 45%. So you take 75 divided by 45%, which would be 0.45. So you take 75 divided by 0.45, and that will give you 167. So there are 167 total cars. So again, you just set it up. If you want to look at it the long way would be 75 here over x equals the percent, which was 45%. Multiply by x, divide by 45%. And so really the shortcut, which is how I would want, as long as you know how we get there, this is really how you do, all you have to do. Just take the total number and divide it by the decimal. So 75 divided by 0.45. And that's pretty much all they're going to do with you. If you look at the homework on page 351, they give you 1 and 2, which is how we started the class off. And then 3 and 4, they're going to ask you to make your own graph. And so you just basically draw it and then put in the information. That's all you have to do. And so do that. And then for 3 and 4, they basically want you to tell the percent for each of those. And so they give you the total and they give you the number of each. So to find the percent, you just have to do what I did right here. They give you the total and they give you the, and so you're just going to work it through. That's about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything left off I can go through with you. I think that should get y'all set up. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you get with me because I can help you work through some of it if you get stuck, and play back the recording to the segment dealing with the questions that you're dealing with, and that should help you. So I hope y'all have a good day. That'll be it.